Greetings collectors and welcome to today's retro game review. I'm rather excited about today's episode as we get a little bit of everything. A Japanese animated classic, fast-paced action, a resurrection of a hidden gem and a charming heroine to top it all off. Despite all of this, the game remains relatively unknown here in Western cultures. Join me today as we step back in time to experience the joys of Taime Gal. As you may have guessed from the introduction, Taime Gal is best described as an interactive movie. I'm looking here at the 1992 Sega CD edition, but the game has its Japanese arcade origins right back in 1985. Following in the laserdisc technology of 1983's Dragon's Lair, Taime Gal looked to expand on the genre. The plot of the game is easy enough to follow, as there is minimal dialogue and plenty of action. Our heroine, Reika, time travels through history in order to track down the criminal known as Luda. Reika's mission is to stop Luda's abominable plans to change history. To do this, you'll guide Reika as far back as 70 million BC, right through to 4001 AD. All in all, that's quite a lot of scope for a plot. As with most interactive movie games, the control system is very basic. The movie will play out as an action sequence. As the action progresses, you'll need to either press up, down, left, right, or the action button to guide yourself to safety. Fail to react in time, and you'll be killed in a humorous cutscene. Taime Gal does offer up a rather quirky variation on the theme. Periodically, Reika can stop time in order for you to select one of three options. Pick wrong and you'll lose a life. Pick correctly and you'll continue on your journey. It's worth remembering that its arcade origins have a lot of influence here. If you've never seen the level, it's a straight 1 in 3 chance of success. You can only imagine the amount of yen that this mechanic must have single-handedly made Taito. Now it's time for me to come clean. For the rest of this episode I'll be showing off the full playthrough, but with a little help from a menu feature. As well as being able to adjust the number of lives and difficulty, you can also access a video mode. Simply enter the password and watch each stage play out. In all, there are 16 stages, each with their own distinctive theme. Most levels will take under a minute to complete if you know what you're doing, but there is a good deal of preparation needed to get to this level of memorisation. Overall, the video is reasonably crisp and the audio is quite decent for a Sega CD game. Reika herself is a really likeable character. She's got that gutsy edge to her that she's up for the fight, but also has some great one-liners and a positive attitude. There's a vulnerable edge to her in some scenes, but you'll know that she will battle through. Whilst the title of the game, Taime Gal, can almost sound a little patronising to Western ears, when you get down to it, there's a very solid character here. She really is a standout heroine, and it's a shame that she never became a household name outside of Japan. As gamers, we often hear that there are few strong female leads in retro games. It's clear that there are, it's just that most don't know about them. Reika is not a damsel in distress like Pauline, Peach or Zelda were back in the early 80s. Reika's first appearance predates Samus Aran in a time before strong female leads took to the main stage of gaming. So you're probably wondering a bit more about Reika and why you haven't heard of her. The chances are that unless you're into Japanese gaming, you may not know the character, as she's not exactly a household name in Europe or the Americas. However, you may have stumbled across her if you're into collecting Japanese games, new and old. You may have seen her appearance in Elevator Action Deluxe as an additional character, but you're most likely to know her from the shoot-'em-up Castle of Shikigami 3. Since her 1985 debut, Reika Kirishima never really went away. She's just been doing her own thing. She would certainly be in my nominations list for most overlooked female gaming protagonists of all time. The Sega CD version of Taime Gal is sadly not as detailed as the original arcade or laseractive versions. Understandably, bringing this type of game to work at all was a technological hurdle to clear back in the 1990s. In terms of pricing, the Japanese arcade edition is by far the most expensive. If I'm honest, I've only ever seen photos on the internet, and they are almost never traded outside of private collections, making it near impossible to value. It's without question that if you have an original arcade edition of Time Gal, you'd be looking at thousands of dollars on the open market, especially outside of Japan. Time Gal was also remastered and brought to the laseractive, PlayStation and Sega Saturn in Japan. Sadly though, you'll be looking to pay large amounts to own a copy. They do address the compression issues and the frame rate reduction of the Sega CD edition dramatically, and I'd dearly love to own an original copy if ever I win the lottery. Here though is the UK PAL Sega Mega CD edition of the game. I've been collecting Sega CD games on and off since the 1990s, and was pleased to find this one around the early 2000s. The artwork is really solid, and you will of course get the European CD double jewel case to house the disc. The artwork continues onto the manual. Inside though is a really poor effort to show off the game. Considering that the game is so dependent on its visuals, it would have been nice to see this reflected in the manual. For a complete UK edition, £20 is the current entry price, but sales nearer £30 are very common these days. In the US, I've seen some more impressive pricing. We know that sealed editions are creeping towards the $150 mark. Complete mint editions typically sell for less. Time Gal is an interesting game for collectors. It's rare enough to fetch some decent money, but not well known enough to the masses to generate great demand. Should Time Gal ever drip back into the wider gaming community, the price of this game could rocket at some stage. If you have the original edition using the laser technology, then you're definitely in for a payday or a keepsake as a family heirloom. In terms of gameplay, Time Gal will give quite some challenge to the gamer. I found that in some cases I practically had to press the event direction before the indicator suggested. You may remember from my Strahl review last year that I'm quite fond of games in this genre. Time Gal is no exception. Strahl running on the Japanese Sega Saturn benefits greatly from the 32-bit processor and is still a clear winner for me in this category. Dragon's Lair may have set the initial standard, but the difficulty was enough for me to lose interest in the very long term. Time Gal hits a really good balance. I find the lead character more engaging than Dirk the Daring, and the overall game difficulty doesn't put me off coming back for more when I do fail. Time Gal and cinematic movie adventure games in general won't be for everyone. Essentially the game is boiled down to a series of QuickTime events, something that has almost become a no-go mechanic in recent years. However, Time Gal does show off the technology of the era very well. Most gamers treat this genre as a bit of an oddity. Yes, it's something that you can do, but it's not something that the masses are likely to take into their hearts as easily as a Street Fighter or Space Harrier game. If you're a collector with a passion for Japanese culture, the Sega CD and obscure heroines, then I think you'll really get a kick out of Time Gal. If you can go into this one open-minded, then there's really not much to dislike. As I leave you with some highlights, you may just have found your new favourite Japanese heroine of gaming.
Time to go!
Hello again, I hope you enjoyed today's show and thank you for the view. Remember, you can always comment, like, subscribe and find us on the social media sites below. Happy collecting!